Greg Collins, Substitute Teachers Lounge. I taught first grade for the first time this week, and there's so many things to talk about it. They were great. The teachers were great.
Substitute Teachers Lounge.
It almost didn't happen because I told myself I would never go below third grade, but then I enjoy this school so much. I'm taking everything they offer. And about 2 weeks ago, this popped up. The day before, I got canceled. And I said, oh, no, I'm not going to be able to try first grade after all. It's because the lady was actually going to be there after all. She's on a jury duty kick, and sometimes you don't get called in. So I was disappointed. I was relieved, sort of, and disappointed at the same time. But then within a half an hour, I hate to say it like this, but one of the other first grade teachers apparently got sick, and I took her job, and man, it was a memorable day. And I'm going to tell you how first grade, of course, I've only done it once, and a lot of you out there have more experience. I'm going to tell you how first grade is different from the others. They were really well behaved. It really has nothing to do about that, but it's their age and their personalities and just the fact that they're 7 years old. I joked with the teachers that, well, first graders are great, but they would be better in small doses. And so we're going to talk about first grade. All right. You know, it's funny. I enjoyed first grade so much that I couldn't wait to record this episode. I actually had a different topic in mind, but after I did first grade, I wanted to tell you this. It's on the way in to school that day. I just happened to be walking down the sidewalk with another substitute teacher, and he said, what grade you got today? And I said, first. And he goes, oh, he said, I don't think I could do first. And I told him my whole story about how I used to do middle school and high school only, and now it's hard for me to go back to that because elementary school's kind of spoiled me, and I told myself that I like third grade best. I still think that. I had third grade my last day this week, and it was one of my favorite classes, and I enjoyed it a lot, but I got to do first grade, and they were a lot of fun, but they were different. In fact, I guess more so in elementary school than any other, than middle school and high school. I'll say it like that. There's so much difference between each and every individual grade. In fact, the day after this episode drops, oh man, here we go. I'm subbing my first day of kindergarten. And it just happens to be the class that my grandson is in, so that will be interesting. I've already subbed my granddaughter. She's in 5th grade. I've subbed her class a couple of times. And one little misnomer about me saying that I've never subbed first grade before is that I actually had 2 days subbing music last week. And when you're in music, or I guess it's any related arts, you hit on just about all of the grades every day, especially if you're there for 2 days. I was kind of blessed in that what he let me prepare some things on my own. I found a nice, I'm a big Mario guy, so I found a nice Mario tutorial about how to sing Mario words, but learn 16th notes and 8th notes and quarter notes and all that good stuff as you're doing it. And I was able to teach that in half-hour slots all day for different classes, and I met the first grade. They were fine. I actually taught a couple of kindergarten class, and I actually think the kindergartners were the best behaved class of all of them. So I'm kind of looking forward to my kindergarten gig tomorrow. But let's go back to first grade. So it was a very busy day for them. They were actually practicing some things in music that took them out of their normal routine. So I was dealing with that. But here's what I suspect is true, now that I've had experience with it, is true of every first grade everywhere. I can just guess that this just goes on everywhere because they're 7. they are still highly emotional. And it's funny, every elementary school class, you'll have students hovering around your desk all the time. With first grade, it's really intense because they're hovering around a lot. They do things that every other class does, every other grade does, but they do them more often. My first example of this, and sometimes they choke me up a little bit. First graders, well, they're going to cry a little bit more than the other grades. And I saw crying on the playground because they got hurt. I saw crying when they thought somebody did something to them out on the playground or in the classroom. And you just have to deal with it. What I try to do with crying, and I mentioned if another classmate did something to them, I'll talk more about that here in a moment, because that's a separate issue from crying, because they don't always cry when that happens. But the crying part, I try to, kind of crouch down, get my face on the level of their face so I'm not looking down at them. And then I'll just say, all right, let's see. First of all, it's over. There's nothing we can do about it now. I'm sure it was an accident. One kid was even crying because someone had spilled water on part of a costume that he was supposed to wear, the part of it that was paper. So he was upset about that because he wanted his costume to be perfect. That's fair enough. And I understood that. And you go for if they act like they're hurt, here's what I would say to them first. I'll just ask them, are you hurt? Sometimes they will nod their head yes. And then I'll say, all right, show me where it hurts. And if they take too long to show you, well, they're probably just kind of making it up. If they finally point to something and it's an arm, if it's an arm especially, I'll just kind of, all right, rub your arm a little bit. And I said, look, your arm's working. It's going to be okay. I said, I don't want you to ruin the rest of your recess. So let's get over it. Let's see if we can dry up these tears. I might even have, you got to be careful with this. I might even have a Jolly Rancher inside, but then they might force cry just to get a Jolly Rancher. It's amazing how much they'll do for a Jolly Rancher. As a side note, I went to a play a couple of nights ago at a high school that I haven't subbed at for 2 months. One of those students came up to me and said, hey, Mr. Collins, good to see you. Do you remember you still owe me a Jolly Rancher? High school junior from 2 months ago. So it is amazing, the Jolly Rancher effect. So that's crying. That's the first thing you'll have to deal with. They'll do it in the classroom. Sometimes when I've had to come down on a student because they're repeatedly doing the same wrong thing, well, they don't like to hear my more serious voice. They like my friendly voice. Sometimes I will tell them, do not take advantage of me because I'm a nice guy, because you don't want to see me when I don't get to be as friendly. And this young man, I think, has actually cried twice when I had to get serious with them, but he also wanted to sit next to me in the classroom. So it happened. So deal with the crying, try to be diplomatic. One thing that I personally wouldn't do, you can do it if you want, if that's who you are, and you say, I'm just going to tell them to get over it and move on. Well, it's not what they need to hear at the moment, but if that's who you are, that's who you are. I try to be as diplomatic as possible. So first thing is crying. Next thing, it rhymes with it. It's lying. Now, all kids are going to stretch the truth. All kids are worried about getting in trouble. And let's face it, adults are the same way. If you get caught doing something wrong, you may not lie, but you are definitely going to stretch the truth to the point that you are trying to get out of something. Well, if you call up a student, here's what I normally do. Normally in high school, I can say this and it works. I can say, all right, you will get in less trouble with me if you tell the truth. And remember, I've got some resources I can use to determine whether you're lying to me or not. Maybe I actually just saw what you did. Maybe I've got students in here that they're going to tell me what you did. So you'll get in less trouble with me by telling the truth than lying. Now, that's true. If they didn't tell the truth, well, I'll say, okay, what should we do about it now? And I'll let them assign their own punishment. If they lie to me, well, then I get to assign the punishment. And it's going to be, I'll say it like this, serious enough to be a learning lesson. It's worse with first grade. It's worse as you progress down the ladder. Maybe fifth grade, I can talk some of them into telling me the truth. First grade, I'm not sure I could because they're still in the mode, just like home. I got to cover up for what I just did so I don't get in trouble. I will, and I have, not very often, but I will share notes with the teacher. They know, and I start with this, the students know that I would rather share good notes about the things they did well and not bad notes unless I absolutely have to, unless they force me to. Had third grade last week, and I told them, I said, you're one of my favorite classes. I don't think you're quite as sharp today behavior-wise as you were the last time, though. So I said, here's what I'm going to do. I picked two of the students. I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let these students write notes for me to leave for the regular teacher. And if I agree with them, I will sign my name. I want them to be honest. They said they would. And it's funny, when they were putting it together at the end of the day, they actually asked me, Mr. Collins, can I be specific and call out students by name? And I said, no, I don't want to get into that because your teacher might think that it was worse than I actually thought it was. So be general. And they did. They said at times they got too noisy. At times some of the students were trying to hide the fact that they were on tabs playing a sports game or something like that. While they were doing their work, they would do it like in between questions, but still not what they were supposed to be doing. So they did a good job. So you've got crying and lying. And let's now say, maybe I'll just call it neediness. Now, I don't mean that financially. I mean first graders more so than any other. They need everything. They want you to help them with everything. When I walk in, they are asking me questions from the time I get in the door. They're lined up. They have their hands up, so they're doing it properly. And all the way to my desk, it's to the point where I also, this is related to that, but it's not. Now, I try to address every need in there. If I don't know, I'll tell them I don't know, but I might find out for them. If it's something, I won't tell them I'm Googling it. But if something, I feel like I can help their knowledge if I Google something, not on a test question, of course, but just something we can learn together, like who was the 18th president, things like that, that maybe the question just came up in class. It did, by the way. I had one gentleman in a class that was very good with presidents. So first graders will ask you for a lot of things. Be prepared to help them a lot. I can't, you know how I love to share stories. I can't share as many stories with them. And I've said this about elementary school in general. Every hand in the place goes up when you share a story because they've got a similar story. And if we share them all, I had one student, third grade student, this week said, Mr. Collins, we probably should get back to what we're doing. And we were sharing stories and we were having such a good time. And we did, in fact, get back to what we were doing. And I'm glad she pointed that out. First graders, you'll have more of that. And I'll say it like this. I enjoyed first grade. In fact, it's kind of funny. This coming week, I start with, it's more of a teacher coverage thing. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. So I think my first day, it's all at the same school. I will have done 2 weeks at the same elementary school because I love it that much, love the students that much, love the teachers. A lot of teachers that know me, maybe through my wife because they knew her as a teacher, or they knew me through sports programs because maybe they're the age that my kids were. They're now in their 30s and they're teaching. And I love this school. And this week I'm teaching a coverage day while various different teachers go to teacher appreciation at different times. And I've got 2 days of first grade, and I got that day of kindergarten, and I've got 1 day open for now. But last week was the first week that I subbed every single day for a little while. It wasn't by choice. It's just that I didn't find what I really like to do. So if any of you from that school are listening, you know who I'm talking about. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity. And I'll say it in a weird way. Thanks for being absent. I hope you're getting better if you were sick, but thanks for posting your job so I could pick it up. I'm getting more now asking me to. I had one teacher, the office asked me to sub Monday, and I said, well, I'm actually already subbing here. So that's a good feeling when they get used to seeing you there so much that they want you in the building. I love it so much when I purposely walk in the cafeteria at the beginning of lunch for my class and the end of lunch for my class a few minutes extra because I know there's going to be another grade in there. And I love it when I walk in and some of them are waving at me and they want to talk to me. They try to wave me over. We get to talk a little bit socially, and some of them are my granddaughter's friends. I'll talk to them. So first graders are different. I love to teach their class. It's just kind of a different challenge and one that I'm going to continue to work on and get better and better. Who knows? Maybe next week. I've got an idea for the episode next week. Maybe after I teach kindergarten, I'm going to have to talk about that too. I'll close quickly with one last thing that I almost forgot to mention. In fact, I'll be honest, I just edited the whole show and forgot that I hadn't mentioned this, but you will find more every grade in elementary school, sometimes in all the levels, they will snitch on each other. I'm not going to use that word in front of first graders, but it intensifies with first graders all day long. Maybe every 15 minutes, some student will say, so-and-so just did this to me, so be prepared how you're going to deal with that. And I tell them, well, just do your best to make things better. Since I didn't see them do that, I can't really punish them for anything. So just try to get along with each other and the day will go better. As we close, always remember that you can email your questions to gregcollinssubstitute@gmail.com. Please join our Facebook group, Substitute Teachers Lounge, where we'll share ideas and thoughts about each week's show. See you next week. Music provided by Ben Sound.